part of what we did under our people pillar was to create an equity, inclusion and belonging working group. And we've also set some gender diversity targets, which we're working towards. At the moment, our gender targets are partly aligned with the IATA 25 by 25 ambition. So we are aiming for 25% of our senior leadership to be female by 2025. We're currently around about 19% there. And we also have a separate figure for our middle management population, which we're aiming to be 40% female by 2033.
Hello, my name is Lakshmi Ajay. I'm an associate editor with Stat Media, and today I'm in conversation with Katy Reid. She is the head of sustainability and corporate sustainability at Menzies Aviation. Katy, welcome to this conversation.
Thank you, Lakshmi.
I believe that you were a part of discussions today at the World Cargo Symposium in Istanbul regarding sustainability assessment and ESG reporting. These have become buzzwords for the industry at large. What are some points that you raised during this discussion today?
I would say they definitely have become buzzwords and hopefully move beyond buzzwords now. I certainly have noticed that every single session I've been to the IATA Cargo Symposium so far this year has either had a core focus on sustainability or has referenced it in some shape or form. So that's been really interesting to see, and I think that's the first time that I've seen it just so embedded in everything we're doing, which is fantastic. I think from our session, I guess the key points that were raised were really around regulation and how that has evolved and is continuing to evolve and increase, I think, for businesses, and really about how businesses need to be aware of what the requirements are from them and on them, which I think is a really positive thing in helping us drive transparency and change in what businesses are doing. And how they're approaching sustainability, how they're embedding it into their business and their plans, and hopefully delivering that change so that we can see how well we're performing and moving towards a sustainable future.
I believe Menzies had an interesting outreach with its employees to help develop your sustainability program. So what are some guiding principles that are underpinning the current sustainability, that came from this outreach? And what are some priority areas that were mapped that gave birth to the sustainability program at Menzies? Could you share some figures or outcomes that were achieved based off Menzies all-in sustainability program?
So when we first created, I suppose, our sustainability plan all in, we undertook a materiality assessment, and part of that process was engaging internal and external stakeholders to help understand what the material ESG priorities should be for Menzies and what we should be focusing on as a business. And obviously part of that is engaging our employees and asking for their views on what they believe is important to Menzies as well. So that really helped to shape the four key pillars of our all-in plan are people, safety, environment and ethics. And kind of underpinning that, we also have community and governance, which kind of flow through all of those key areas. So within each of those key pillars, we have, over the last couple of years really, we set out, I guess, some initial targets and commitments under each of those areas, and areas that we knew we were going to focus on first of all. And then beyond that, we've evolved and created some new initiatives, identified new areas that we can work on and focus on, and different projects to deliver. Obviously, we've got different metrics that we track under each of those, and we continue to kind of monitor, I guess, the pulse of what we continue to believe is relevant for Menzies. It's not something that's static, it's something that will continue to evolve from now on. And obviously we can understand that we're still achieving sustainability aims that will deliver value and have meaning. So making sure that's relevant is really important. So continuing that engagement is key.
Do gender and diversity play an important role in, these sustainability goals?
We have, part of what we did under our people pillar was to create an equity, inclusion and belonging working group. And we've also set some gender diversity targets, which we're working towards. At the moment, our gender targets are partly aligned with the IATA 25 by 25 ambition. So we are aiming for 25% of our senior leadership to be female by 2025. We're currently around about 19% there. And we also have a separate figure for our middle management population, which we're aiming to be 40% female by 2033. So I think we're around about 31% there at the moment. So still quite a lot of work to do. And obviously making sure that we deliver on those goals is a core part of obviously our people strategy, but what we're really keen to do, it kind of fits in with some of our business risks as well, and actually probably industry risks that people are facing at the moment around attracting and retaining employees into the business. And one area we're doing that beyond gender as well, just looking at creating a more diverse workforce, is to look at how we can create different initiatives, maybe change some of our working practices, policies, and how we operate as a business to encourage or attract different people into the organisation, and really make it a welcoming place for them, and somewhere that they can fit in and ultimately benefit our business.
Tying in with the earlier question, in July 2022, Menzies Aviation joined the Mission Possible Partnership, MPP, an alliance of climate leaders focused on decarbonizing some of the world's highest emitting industries. As the aviation sector takes tiny steps towards decarbonization, the acceleration of the deployment of SAF fuels and their production will be vital to the transition to net zero. How is this mission or this collective ensuring that this happens, and also engages governments and the private sector to stay on track for supporting SAF production and distribution?
So SAF's been quite a hot topic at this conference, and I'm sure at every aviation conference at the moment. We supported the Mission Possible Partnership, and actually the Clean Skies Coalition as well, which also looks at aviation transition to a sort of sustainable net zero future for 2050. And obviously both of those initiatives are very focused on airline, I suppose, and a lot of the oil companies as well, in terms of how we can indeed transition, mostly focus on using SAF, but obviously looking at other technologies beyond SAF as well. So the future for hydrogen and so forth. There is a huge mountain to climb in terms of how globally we can increase SAF production, which everyone knows is going to be a challenge, and the level of investment that's required into infrastructure to be able to deliver that, as well as the concerns around sourcing, essentially, of how we will create the SAF as well. So whilst Menzies doesn't necessarily have that looming issue, we don't, although obviously we fuel aircraft and we do operate fuel farms, it's a bigger issue for airlines, but obviously one that we share a concern in terms of just understanding how we're going to have a sustainable aviation future and be part of that. So we do support the use of SAF, and we've supported, we do every day now, support our customers in delivering SAF into aircraft. But I think in terms of engaging with governments, I think there's a bigger question, and it's something that certainly we are keen to get a bit more involved in and focus our attention on. It's just generally, I think it's tied up with the energy transition. So how will governments, and we need governments to help support that, and obviously other big investment companies as well, in terms of the money that's going to be required to fund it, but how we transition globally to have enough, whether it be electricity, green hydrogen, SAF, other fuels, other energy types, to support a low carbon future, is one that we can't solve alone. Governments do need to have a plan and support a plan for how we will transition, and obviously from an airline perspective, SAF at the moment is the immediate answer to that, or it's a short-term, mid-term answer. Whether it's the only long-term answer, I very much doubt it. I would have thought that we would be looking to use other sources of energy in the future as well, and hopefully technology will advance quickly enough for us to do that.
As sustainability takes center stage in all business decisions today, do you believe digitalisation, which is a mega trend that the aviation sector has embraced, can also aid in sustainability? If so, what are the ways digitalisation keeps sustainability in focus in the daily operations, culture and systems at Menzies?
Yeah, I do believe digitisation has a big part to play, and absolutely feeds into our own sustainability plans, particularly around how we can, there are a few areas. One being removing paper from all our operations as much as we possibly can. I think when we look at cargo as well as ground services operations, there is still, yes, there's a lot of data sharing, there's a lot of electronic messaging, but there is still a lot we can do to remove some ageing processes or where paper's still used. So we're very focused on that. And we are actually very engaged with many of our customers in terms of how we can work together, where we've got shared touch points as part of those processes to remove paper wherever possible. It's something that we track internally very, very closely in terms of our paper usage and how we can reduce that. And we've got targets set to reduce our paper usage as well. But on the flip side of that, we also need to be mindful that whilst we're removing paper, there's still a carbon footprint implication for data processing and a lot of the systems we use, and obviously the energy that data centres use. So all our data centres are carbon neutral certified. So that's something that we're mindful of, how we can also make other efficiencies in terms of when we move to those more digitised processes, making sure that those are as efficient as possible as well, and limit our carbon footprint when we move to those. I guess the other side as well is just using technology generally to support what we're doing in terms of data capture and how we can actually understand as a business what our data is, baselining that to be able to then measure and look at how we're improving against our own sustainability targets. So where we can use technology to support things, we're already starting to deploy now.
Right. This brings me very well to my next question. I think in April 2022, Menzies Aviation announced that it will work with carbon offset specialist Climate Care to support socially responsible projects that cut carbon and improve lives. Based in Oxford and Nairobi, Climate Care helped create the voluntary carbon market and pioneered carbon finance for community development projects. What can you tell us about this initiative and what has happened on the ground till now?
Climate Impact Partners, as they're now known, we have worked with them for the last couple of years, identifying projects, less so, I guess, from a carbon offsetting point of view, as just looking for socially responsible projects that had an element of moving to renewable energy, or had an element of reducing some kind of making sure there was an emissions reduction element as part of that, not necessarily directly for us or indirectly for us even, but actually just making sure that we were picking projects to support in developing countries where they need investment to help them transition, as well as having a wider community benefit. So that's why we partnered with Climate Impact Partners, because they do enable us to, I guess they help us find projects which are socially responsible. And we know that are auditable or audited and, have been proven to be of a really high standard and genuinely delivering value and benefits against the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So that was our main reason for partnering with them. Obviously, since then, we've supported a number of projects through sort of contributing towards the financing of those projects. And I think most recently, we're about to publish our new sustainability report, so all the details will be in there of the projects that we've supported most recently. But certainly we've picked 4 really high quality projects in areas where we operate, which hopefully will have a benefit for the local communities.
Any insights from the report that is upcoming that will show you the way forward that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think, obviously I don't want to spoil the surprise, but I think what we're aiming for this year with our sustainability report is to make it really understandable, really clear, really accessible, while still being compliant with obviously all the regulations that we were talking about at the IATA conference this morning. And I think hopefully we'll achieve that. What our plans are, the progress we're making against our sustainability goals, our plans for the future, and some of the new goals and targets that we're also setting will be contained in that report. So I'm hopeful that will give people a real sense that we are making progress and we are obviously taking sustainability very seriously. It's something that we be really transparent in our reporting. We think there's value in doing that. From an internal communication point of view, making sure that we as a business are all engaged and understand what we're doing and can take, and understand where we're going for the future. I can take some pride in that, but also externally making sure that our customers understand it. We're very clear with our suppliers what our intentions are and what we expect of them, and I guess that the wider society as well.
When it comes to ESG reporting, it's again a chicken and egg kind of a situation. Companies do it on their own. There are no, governments that are still implementing it. So do you think that should change? And what are some trends in ESG reporting? This is something that you work on?
Yeah.
Day in and day out.
That's changing now. So I think that's already changing. There's been there are a lot of different frameworks already, as we know from a sustainability reporting perspective, a lot of which are voluntary. And I think that has been difficult in the past for whether it be investors or whether it be customers or consumers to really get get a real sense what's important, being able to compare companies, really understand and have clear information about what their sustainability plans are and how they're progressing. So I think a lot of the changes that are coming in from a regulatory point of view, so in Europe it's CSRD, or in the UK we've obviously already got TCFD, which we comply with. They all have a slightly different flavour. There's a further regulation being looked at with ISSB, lots of acronyms being thrown around here, and it becomes quite complex. But I'm hopeful that things will start to consolidate slightly, and that we will, I think from a regulatory reporting perspective, some of the changes that are coming in will be a positive thing for businesses in general and for their stakeholders to really understand what businesses' plans are for sustainability and how they genuinely are progressing. I think it will force transparency, and I think it will also force some positive change throughout the supply chains that businesses have as well, in making sure that ESG is at the forefront of how they're doing business.
People are a very important factor in your operations. A big part of, driving sustainability is the employee of the work. So how does Menzies ensure that the workforce is trained, skilled and conversant about the small and big changes that the company is making as it moves towards its sustainability and becoming carbon neutral for the scope 1 and 2 emissions by 2033?
So I think that's why we created All In as an identity for our sustainability plan, was exactly that, to give it an identity that we could use to aid in how we were communicating that and embedding it in our business. And it is something that we have embedded throughout our business. It feeds into our purpose, our strategy, our decision making, everything we do. And that's really important for us. And that's hard work to get that properly embedded and to make sure that people understand what it is and why we're doing it. And that's something that from an employee perspective, I think being really creative in your comms, but also a continuous comms. It doesn't need to be, here's a massive big launch and that's it, thanks very much. That won't, that's not going to cut the mustard. It's something that has to be lived every single day. And we can only really, I think employees will come on board in different ways. But I think once you start showing what you're doing and they can see some tangible progress, positive change and things that impact them and that they care about, as well as, in terms of what we're doing as in a wider sense as a company, I think that's really important to get them properly engaged in what you're doing and have an understanding of what it means for them as well, and how they can see that we're making good progress and that we're taking it seriously. And then hopefully that makes them feel like it's part of something they can influence. And actually we've done other employee engagement as well, seeking other feedback for some of the things that we're doing, helping shape our scope 3 emissions analysis actually in terms of how employees travel to work, as well as other areas. I think having that continual dialogue, making sure they can see what we're doing and can see real progress, and as I say, making sure that they understand what that looks like is really key. And that comes in a variety of forms.
You also mentioned is that the industry is having a hard time to attract and retain talent. So are there any policies that you've tweaked to make it more accessible to youngsters and to newer talent coming into the industry?
We are doing it. Well, we're continuing to do a few things. We've still got some, I think, quite a bit of change to make. Understanding, certainly from thinking about the how we engage younger people, this has actually been a very, very recent source of topic of discussion for us. So we've got some hopefully exciting plans happening with that. We do have some apprenticeship schemes as well as some graduate schemes, and obviously we're looking. There's a number of recruitment opportunities actually for internships as well, where we're looking for younger people or people who are perhaps still studying to get involved in the business, because it is, we've got to inspire the next generation and let them know what we're doing and that we are trying to transform aviation, that it's not something that's not making progress towards a sustainable future. And there's a real opportunity, I think, for people to get involved and make a positive change. And hopefully we can inspire the younger generation to get involved and do that. I think as well, though, there are some other areas we're looking at. We mentioned already around some of the, trying to attract a more diverse group of people, or different categories of people that wouldn't traditionally be recruited or look at jobs perhaps with Menzies Aviation, but hopefully we can inspire them to do that. One recent partnership, which we'll share more details of in the future, is with an organisation called Tent, and they are very supportive of trying to mentor and recruit refugees into the workplace. So supporting companies in their plans and programmes to do that. So we have just recently joined Tent, and we are very excited to be working with them and some of their own partner organisations to help us develop our plans to support refugees into our workplace wherever we can. Also, there are some challenges around that with some airports and airport authorities in terms of security clearance, and making sure that we can overcome that is really important. So that's something we're working on and hopefully announce more details of very soon.
Katy, thank you for this conversation.
Thank you very much.